Nigeria's government says it's suspending Twitter indefinitely after the company deleted a controversial tweet from the country's president. The social media platform removed the post from President Muhammadu Buhari, saying it violated the site's rules against abusive behavior. In the tweet, Buhari threatened to punish members of a secessionist movement in the country's southeast. Nigeria's information ministry accused Twitter of double standards in ignoring violent messages from a separatist leader. Well, the country's information minister, Lai Mohammed, questioned Twitter's actions, labeling them as very suspect.
Twitter may have its own rules. It's not a universal rule. If Mr. President, anywhere in the world, feels very bad and concerned about a situation, he is free to express such views.
Nigeria government has just banned Twitter, primarily because the president did a post on Twitter, and Twitter either removed the post or deleted the post, but didn't allow people to see the post because it violated their policy. Well, guess what? Nigeria said Twitter is violating their country. One thing I can say about Nigeria, I don't know of Nigeria banning its citizens from making posts on Twitter. So I don't know where the social media giants like Twitter seem to think that they can go ahead and ban a president's post because it violates their policy. But what's good for the goose is not somehow good for the gander. So Nigeria has now banned Twitter because the president made a post that Twitter decided to delete or not be shown. So with that being said, just take a listen in. And I'd like to hear your comments afterwards.
Mr. Adamu Garba is one that is perhaps happy at this moment because you've been fighting Twitter and you're not happy with the operations of Twitter, and you're happy today, isn't it?
Yes, I'm happy, seriously. And it's clearly showing that actions cannot just happen without consequences. And Twitter, if you study their mode for the last 2 years, they have been more of an anti-Nigerian force, pro-destruction of Nigeria, than actually a platform that's supposed to advocate for freedom of expression of Nigerians. Because if you look at what happened now with the suspension of maybe removal of some of the tweets of the president, I can't see any very strong word, a vile word like that of that criminal Nnamdi Kanu that has been left to still be available on Twitter. Meanwhile, a president of a country who is democratically and legitimately elected to be the leader of a nation, making a statement, talking, giving a language, we will communicate in the language that they understand, and that becomes a very serious issue to Twitter and violating their rules. We don't know what kind of rule is that, and then they decided to embarrass the country, not the president. So therefore, they have to be suspended. You know, as you rightly said, I took them to court during EndSARS process simply because I noticed exactly what these guys are trying to do is to break this country. They tend to amplify a lot of fake news and raise a lot of tension in the street, making the country to be more destroyed. So the best solution is to see how we can arrest them. And we did that. So at that moment, so many Nigerians don't understand. They came attacking me, insulting me, calling me a series of names simply because they thought I was going against EndSARS. I wasn't against EndSARS. I was against a tool that is planning to destroy Nigeria. And we have seen that very clearly. We have a very serious crisis in the southeast where these guys are destroying fundamental institutions of Nigerian democracy, INEC offices, police institutions, courts. They are killing people on the street, destroying people's properties. And then Twitter is behind them. That's why I used to call them, I think Twitter is like kind of an IPOP online machine. Because what they do more is supporting IPOP much more than the government. And IPOP, everyone knows they are anti-Nigeria. Their target is to destroy Nigeria. This even left somebody to be asking questions. We have Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the current director of WTO, on the board of Twitter. Is she part of the instigators of Twitter? Why won't she call them to order when they are talking against Nigeria? Why is it that we never had a single tweet or any comment from Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala about the activities of Twitter? Is she supporting IPOP? These are the kind of things that we need to be very, very clear about.
Into the conversation,
it is very, very necessary because this is very serious. You can't have an organization, a platform company, a company that is profit making, that is even making profit out of Nigeria, that has its massive users in Nigerian domain, that decided to carry its office to Ghana and employ Ghanaians against Nigerians, and then decided to keep sponsoring content against Nigeria and Nigeria's interests all the time. And then we decided to sit down and keep it. So we have to ask some questions. It's not all about Twitter. It's about the corporate existence of a country from a vile individual that is constantly calling the blood of me as a Fulani man and the blood of all Nigerians and any other person that claims to be Nigeria. So it's a very serious issue. It's not something we need to take it lightly. And that is why I am particularly very happy that the government has seen Twitter for who they are and decided to take this action.
All right.
Yes.
We need to take a break up. The source of livelihood, income and livelihood, this must be reviewed. Are Nigerians getting their livelihood? Are some Nigerians getting livelihood there? I'd like you to react to all of that.
Yeah, the thing is, I think PDP is just trying to take advantage of the current political climate against the interests of national security. The issue of information adulteration that we are seeing so much on social media is actually a question of national security. Almost 50% of war are won on media. And the 21st century has shown us that social media is very pivotal to victory of war and destruction of countries. You need to check the history of what brought down Mubarak's regime. It was Facebook revolution. Similarly, Gaddafi, it was purely social media. That's where they now advocated their head and they rose a tension that destroyed Libya, that we see Libya today. Similarly, Syria, about 600,000 people died. All the protest starts on social media. This is issue of national security. It's not a civil conversation anymore. And what Twitter has been using consistently is to take advantage of the civil rights that Nigerians have to be able to advocate against the interests of the country. We cannot allow, I think this is the time that government even supposed to look at this much more deeply, because the most stable countries in the world are the countries that are not on that control and regulate the flow of social media. Like China, for instance. China is one of the most stable countries in the world simply because they decided not to allow these foreign social platforms in their land, so that they can allow Chinese people to express themselves using Chinese culture in Chinese language, using Chinese way of life without any adulteration from other foreign alien cultures that may adulterate their system and cause them against each other. And if you look at that and then come back to Hong Kong, where it is a Chinese and English kind of hybrid, you will see very clearly, because they have access to this kind of social media, there is constant constant problem. And similarly, if you go back to Russia, Russia became very stable when Putin decided to enact laws to be able to shut down these social platforms that are trying to cause problems in their country. Russia became very stable.
And you perhaps don't think that this might be a gagging of the civil or a restriction of the civil space?
When there is a case of national security, everything should pend. Why? Because what we are facing through now, you look at the problem with terrorism, you look at the problem with banditry, you look at the problem of kidnapping, you look at the problem of IPOP, you look at almost in every sector of the country, in every section of the country, there is crisis. And then we have so many criminals that leverage this internet to defraud people, spoiling the country's image, doing all those kind of things, and suddenly we now feel like this is civil.
But America, from what I see, they called some of the operators and the executives of these social media giants, they call them to parliament and had conversation about not restricting or not banning them, but getting some restrictions that will not allow this kind of hate or this kind of situation.
The truth of the matter
is, you think that the government should go in that direction?
Seriously, the truth of the matter is social media platforms, no matter how we want to see it, is a political platform. And the American government and the American system is using Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp, and co to do espionage. Now, all those gimmicks of calling them to be able to answer in the name of transparency does not invalidate the fact that the FBI, the CIA, and co are still using these people to be able to advocate the American interests. What of Nigerian interests? Can Nigerian Parliament summon Jack Dorsey to come? Under which jurisdiction, which law?
Yeah. So what we wonder, you're